Welcome to Man Matters Podcast, where combat sports, mindset, and real life lessons collide. Hosted by Derving and Nate, we dive into Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, MMA, and the grind that shapes athletes inside and outside the mat. Every episode we bring stories, strategies, and raw conversations that fuel growth, resilience, and community. Stay tuned because it's more than a fight, it's a lifestyle. What's going on, everyone? UFC 328 came and went, but this wasn't just one of those cards where you just talk about who won and who lost. This one felt different because underneath the highlights, underneath the knockouts, the decisions, and the post-fight interviews, there were real human stories unfolding in real time. Some fighters walk into the octagon carrying legacy on their shoulders. Some walk in carrying grief. Some walk in dealing with injuries no one fully knew about. And others were dealing with pressure that had nothing to do with the opponent from across them. And what makes MMA so unique is that all of that still has to get put aside the moment the cage door closes. So today we're just not breaking down 328. We're breaking down everything that came with it. What's going on, man? How's it going?
It's going good.
Man, trying to break down this card as much as we can, as best as we can. The first thing you want to start with was the guy who honestly represented while longevity, toughness, and perspective really looks like in this sport, Jim Miller. He literally wrong tooth. Also, this fight took place in New Jersey, which that's where he's from. Fight took place in Newark, New Jersey. He's from Sparta, New Jersey. Jim Miller showed up once again. He did what Jim Miller always does. He got it done in 47 UFC fights, which seems a record. I don't know who's going to break the record. And he's been UFC 100, UFC 200, and UFC 300. Nobody will ever do that.
That's unreal.
Yeah, I think it's 18 years so far he's been in the UFC. But what makes this one different is everything that led up to it. He stepped away from fighting not because of age, not because of decline, but because life demanded something bigger for him. His son was battling cancer, and he chose to be the father first. And then he comes back and wins in the first round. And it just makes you stop and ask, what does fighting even mean at this point for him? Because how long he has been fighting, he's not like he's fighting for a title contention or anything like that. Just fighting as being part of a warrior at this point. Some of the fights that he had. Because he fought a legend, Bobby Green. He lost that fight. I think it's UFC 300. But at this point, what do you think he's fighting for?
It's hard to say. I mean, it seems like there gets to be an itch, you know, that only these fights can itch for some people. Especially, it seems like once they get going, they tend to look back and want to do it again. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's money. Because I mean, wow, it can't be. He must enjoy it to a huge extent, and then the money on top, I'm sure, is helpful.
Yeah, I think also another thing is exceptional was because of the thing that happened with his son. Because sometimes life is tough too, like having his son battling cancer, beating cancer. It seems like fighting is what he always does. It seems like a break from real life. Because fighting in and of itself is difficult, but you used to really move and dealing with different situations, especially somebody has done it for this long, 18 years. But life itself, some of the battles that it gives you, you haven't trained for those. You haven't drilled for them. So it's a whole different ball. And then especially when it's a relative, which feels like the best thing I can compare it to is like being a competitor to being a coach. You think that somebody else is battling and you're only able to see from the sideline. You're not able to do much. You're not a doctor. You're not able to be able to provide for the medicine, see what kind of medical needs they might need, especially for a serious disease as that. And it is really humbling trying to deal with that, especially having a loved one going through those trials and those fights that you are not used to, but still use the same approach as a fighter. Just fight them and help them and be there for somebody whenever they need them during those tough situations.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm sure that does play into it at the very least, if that's, the reason that he's sticking with it.
Yeah, because he's a lot of people like it. He has a freaking guillotine. So people get into the guillotine. You know, usually the guillotine, that arming guillotine, and he does it from close guard. Dude, you get in there, you're not getting out of there. I can't remember how he explained it. He has a different grip when the arming guillotine. Then usually when you tripod, you kind of get loosen up the guillotine. You're able to fight out of it. But for some reason, he's able to scooting his hips rather than squeezing with his arms. And from there, he just sweeps the person, and they're stuck on their back in the guillotine.
That's a torturous one, yeah.
Oh yeah, the best thing you can use is fish is just bob like a fish as much as you can, trying to wiggle some room, but you can wiggle so much until you having a seizure.
Yeah,
But yeah, I really admire that what he does. And as I'm admirable as well to step out from the competition and be there for his son, and through a tough battle that he had to go through. And he said that doesn't matter whatever name you might get throughout life, a coward will never be one of them because of the fight that he put through for that cancer. And speaking of things that put fighting into perspective, we had another moment this week that reminded us of how heavy life outside the cage can be. Grant Dawson, he didn't bring he had a loss during his fight week. He won his fight, but he didn't say anything about it until after the press conference of his fight. He was having some rough time with his partner, his wife. He went through something no athlete is ever prepared for. During the fight week, he experienced a miscarriage of their first child with his wife. And he still competed, and that alone is difficult to even process because it forces the question that doesn't even have an easy answer. Should a fighter, do you think, even be in the cage on that kind of emotional weight?
I mean, I guess it kind of depends on the person, but I mean, I can't imagine.
Yeah, especially that close because it was the week of the fight too. That happened. It was the Monday of the fight. So he said he promised his wife a vacation. He's not going to fight until probably December or the beginning of next year. Because they're trying to get away from him. And he just compartmentalized the situation, and he said he'll deal with it later because he wasn't able to do at the time. And he said his wife being a champ when it comes to dealing with a tough loss that they have. But actually, this expectation in combat sports to show up no matter what, no excuses, no hesitation, no outside distractions. But reality doesn't work that way. Things happen. And dealing with that kind of loss, it haunts you for your life. But it's out of control at a certain point, life situations. And you don't really control certain things. You just control how you react, how emotional you respond to those situations. Lots of tough as they may be. But thoughts goes out to him because it is a tough loss, losing a first child that way. Hopefully be able to bounce back, be able to perform well because it is tough. Some fighters are able to come back. Not everybody's Eric Clapton comeback, his career comeback. I think Sean lost. Nobody's especially in combat sports, it's a lot. It is physical, but at the same time, it's psychological, and confidence does take a big factor in fighting. So hopefully he'll be able to. He seemed like he at the time after the fight probably he wasn't showing much emotion, but probably later on he will be dealing with it different.
I would imagine.
And while those two stories show human side of the sport, UFC also honor one of the most defining careers in very different way. Chris Weidman was officially induced to the inducted to the UFC Hall of Fame. And when you look at his career, he forces what you think about what really defines greatness in this sport. Because for a lot of people, he'll always be remembered for one moment beating Anderson Silva. But his career is bigger than that. His longevity, his competing at the highest level, is being part of some of the most iconic moments in UFC history. He raises question, is greatness one defining moment, like his performance against Anderson Silva, or is it accumulation of everything you endure over time? What was your opinion?
What do you mean by that? Like, as in, like, greatness is achieved through? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, like as far as in performance here, I think it's just like one hit wonder. That's like you have some champions there, like, oh, they did well here, and after that they're not able to perform well, or they were they just got lucky to a certain extent, certain times. For example, Marlon Moraes, he fought well going to champion, but after that his career just went downhill. He didn't want to defend the title. Then you have other like Chris Weidman. He did beat Anderson Silva the first time, and second time was the broken leg issue. But also he fought Lyoto Machida, beat over for I think he defended his title 3 times in 2 years. And this loss against Luke Rojo, which is Luke Rojo. He was a Strikeforce champion as well. He was really dominant there, coming out of the AKA team. But he was fighting after Anderson Silva. He was supposed to fight Lyoto Machida. That fight got canceled twice before he actually fought Lyoto Machida. And he had Beto Belfort. It was Beto Belfort coming off the juice. That fight got canceled twice before they actually fought. So I'm not sure if he's responsible for those fights being canceled, because he fought Anderson Silva. The second one was December 2013. Other fight was scheduled for May 2014. Then that's the same day. For some reason, it shows twice. They was canceled twice. But it was May 2014. He's supposed to fight Machida, but he moved to July. And then he's supposed to fight Beto Belfort December of that year, 2014. Then it was supposed to be February 2015. And eventually they fought in May 2015 against Beto Belfort, in which he beat him. So after that, he lost a Luke Rojo, and then he had tough losses. Your Romero, that's the one where he split him with a blind knee, got him wide open during that fight. I know you remember that one. Indeed, another one was a knee against Gegard Mousasi. That one was a controversial because that was, I think, that one was one of the first cards that New York had, and he had his hands down, and Gegard Mousasi kneed him in the head with his hands once down, but Gegard Mousasi picked up his torso, so his hands come off the ground and knee him, which is illegal. But whenever he got hit, he said that he was able to continue because he thought it would be a knock contest because his hands was down. But in just the replay, he showed that he picked him up, like pick up his hands and hit him. So his hands weren't on the ground. So if he was able to continue, so they considered that I think it was a KO, TKO, they consider instead of a knock contest. And that's one of the famous lines. "He's still my boy." Remember his dad went on that after that interview. He was giving an interview, and his dad went into the microphone. He's like, "It doesn't matter if you lost. You're still my boy. He's still my boy." Oh, how embarrassed would you be if you just lost a fight for the third time?
My gosh.
And your dad does that in national TV. What would you do?
Get out of there as soon as possible. Dang.
Dad, don't help me. Don't help me.
Yeah, I got this. Don't worry.
But then he had that Jacare fight, but he beat Gastelum in an arm triangle choke, and then he lost against Sosa, Jacare, and Dominic Reyes, which was the third round and first round. And I think Dominic Reyes, he went up to 205 because he was a fighter 185. Yeah. Then he went against Omari Akhmedov. He lost. He won the decision that one. And then he had the broken leg incident with Uriah Hall, which is unfortunate. But he broke his leg, which they call that the go around, the circle of life, because he broke Anderson Silva's leg, and Uriah Hall broke his leg. That would be crazy if Uriah Hall broke his leg later on.
Dang, I would.
That's like the kiss of death right there. But I think he had 2 more fights after that. No, actually 3 fights. He was Owen Levesi and Brad Tavares. I remember the Brad Tavares one. He won against Bruno Silva. lost against Eric Anders, and that was his last one, 2024, December 2024. But actually supposed to be has a coming match against Colby Covington. And then they canceled that one because they're supposed to fight each other. They didn't have their match. Also, he's supposed to fight Anderson Silva in the MVP card back in November. That one was canceled.
Okay.
But yeah. Well, even though he had lost, he was undefeated champion, wasn't? I think he was undefeated champion coming where he got the middleweight title. I think it was an All-American.
Huh, okay. I didn't know that.
His first loss was against Luke Rockhold. Another weird story. I don't know if you heard the story about him the first time he went on a first date with his current wife. He went to pick her up and she went to take a shower. He had to take a shit. I don't know what he had in. So he had to take a shit. And she was in the shower. He couldn't go in the bathroom to take a shit. He saw the trash can. He took a shit. The office, trash can. He took a shit in there. Well, besides what the sock, he went outside, he took the trash, and they came back in. And then his now wife, well, his girlfriend at the time, he was like, "Hey, man," that was the first day. He's like, "Hey, did you just take a shit in my trash can?" He's like, "Yep, I did." Like, wow.
She still married him. Dang.
No. Now she knows what she signed up for. That could be the worst case scenario. It's all downhill from there, I guess. We didn't hear the story about him. Like, yeah, he took a shit in his.
That's wild.
Yeah, dude. He is funny. He's funny as shit. I mean, he's a Long Island guy. That's where he's from. A bunch of story. Him and Ray Longo. That's his coach. But dude, that's during the event. But you see 328, they told him to go down to the floor because they were doing some interview for some of the fighter. Because him and Dusty Poirier, they work Paramount Plus as well as like some of the reporters. And that's what they surprised and they announced that he's gonna be inducted to the UFC Hall of Fame. So hell yeah. He's surprised. Especially being in New Jersey because I'm not sure I know that Silver Fox, his gym is there in New Jersey. I'm not sure if I can remember his name now. He's a Hensel black belt. It's supposed to be the first American black belt before Sarah. Sarah said he's the first black belt, American black belt. But it is man, I can't remember his name. He fought Matt Hughes back in the day. Ricardo Almeida, that's his name. He has a gym up there too.
Okay.
Ricardo Almeida has a gym because he's a Hensel guy. Frank Yeager, Tom Rivers, I think that's why he's New Jersey. That's what his gym is. All those Jersey guys in Long Island. Boom. Yeah, man, he deserves. I mean, especially that's one of the few I can remember, if not the one that comes back and still fought after having a fractured leg like that. I think the only one that went, because Conor McGregor has not come back. Anderson Silva, I don't know if he ever came back and won an MMA fight after he broke his leg against Chris Weidman.
It didn't come back?
No, he hasn't fought.
I thought the sorority fight was after he broke his leg.
No, that was before. Because sorority was before the two Dustin Poirier fights.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think Derek Bronson won that fight, but they give it to that's the only fight that it shows in Anderson Silva's record that he won after he broke his leg. Because he lost against Bisping. That one was a close one. I think that was in London, England. I can't remember where it was. Yeah, fight night 84. Because he knocked out Bisping. But also when he knocked him out was Bisping's mouth guard fell off. And he was looking down and he's rock him. And drop him. And then they stopped the fight because the time had run out of the I think it's fourth or third round. He thought that he had won because they stopped the fight. He was on top of the cage celebrating. It's like, no, get down.
Dang.
That round just ended. It was not over. I was like, oh. I think that's something psychological about that. That you have won, you think it's over, and then they say like, no, it's not over. You just keep going.
Yeah. That would be hard to come back from.
Yeah. Because that's been of several fighters that happen too. The thing is over. It's like, no, keep going because it's the time run out or something happened. Then They just have to do something psychological because that's what your adrenaline. You're like, oh yeah, you get so
Right.
excited.
Yeah, your body kind of relaxes.
So that's not over until you're in the locker room, man.
Yeah, apparently.
When the gloves are off, that's when you know. But yeah, that's another guy. I think Chris Weidman is the only one that I can remember that he won a fight after being broken leg. Which shows his toughness. And I can imagine how much painful that has to be.
Yeah.
How much arthritis that you accumulate in just that one injury.
Yeah.
For some reason, I think Chris Weidman and him are brothers-in-law. I can remember Chris Weidman's sister married Wonderboy Thompson, or Wonderboy Thompson, me or Chris Weidman married Wonderboy Thompson's sister, but they're brothers-in-law. So whenever they were training before the Uriah Hall fight, he was doing some shin conditioning. You know what they do, the stakes on the shins? Like, they call it microfractures. And look what happened. He had a big fracture.
Yeah. Micro turned into a macro.
Oh, yeah. I might have done a little too much. We went a little bit too overboard for it. That sucks because it works to a certain extent, but you have to have some careful with some of those old techniques that you do.
Yeah, right.
Breaking down the body. Boom. I got a different fighter from that night. When Legacy was being celebrated, another fighter was dealing with something very different, something that rarely gets talked about until after the fight's over. Sean Brady addressed criticism from social media and basically called out what a lot of fighters are starting to realize: it's not a real place. And that might sound dismissive at first, but when you actually think about it, it makes sense. Because fighters are not judged in real time by people who have never competed at that level. Every performance is dissected, every mistake is magnified, every win is minimized, and the mental pressure that comes with that is something early generations of fighters never had to deal with. So when Brady says it's not real life, what he's really saying is it's not in the cage. The reason he's addressing that is because this weird phenomenon has happened recently with some fights is that the betting lines they switch. We had the incident of the guy. He looks like through the fight, and he has some that he got a rear naked choke or something. I can't remember his name right now. That was one of those that's being investigated as a gambling incident. And then you had the Michael. I can't remember his last name. The fighter. His fight got canceled too right before he's supposed to fight his opponent because the betting lines switch over. Because he was something suspicious about it. That fight, Michael Johnson, that's his name. His fight got canceled because of the betting line switch right before the fight. Now the same thing happened with Sean Brady. He was a favorite, but then he became an underdog. Right before his fight. Because let's go back to his record. He beat Leon Edwards 2 fights ago. I think he submitted him in the UK. Then he went and fought Morales. That's the fighter. I can't remember correctly. And he lost in the first round. He got beat. I don't know if that has something to do with the betting lines. They took in consideration that maybe he's not as consistent fighter. That might happen that he might not be a favorite. So the betting line, I don't know how these people come up with those numbers for betting lines.
Yeah, I have no idea.
He lost against Marco Morales. He got TKO in the first round, 3 minutes, 27 seconds. But think about it. For example, he just said he doesn't follow those betting lines because, I mean, it's legal for them to bet. So what's the point of looking at those lines? You're not able to bet anyways. But he look at that, he know about it. So it is weird that those betting lines are real time affecting fights for happening.
That is a new dynamic. Yeah, I feel like that can't. I don't know. I feel like that can't keep going, because then people are gonna use that to manipulate things.
Yeah. I mean, this is a main card, but what do they do that for the main event? Will they cancel the whole fight altogether?
There's no way. I don't
No,
think.
they can. There's no way they can cancel a whole fight like that. But how long will they go with this? I can't remember who is their oversight that's looking at those. Because all the sponsor is kind of like that. I can't remember the name right now, but they usually have somebody they have looking at their betting lines, because Hunter Campbell's usually the one that makes the call. Hey man, are you okay? Are you injured? Information can leak that you injured, something like that, that might cause this betting lines to switch. I try to throw this fight and anything like that. So it is weird that those things are real time affecting. Well, that's because it has to suck for a fighter that you've prepared for that long,
right?
For a camp, and then you get scratched off because of freaking betting lines that you're not
Right.
even
I
allowed to
would be
bet on.
pissed. Oh my gosh.
It's like, fuck this shit, man. I'll be mad.
Right.
Because completely out of the control. Completely out of the control at that point.
Or is it?
If you want, it depends. If you're in the bottom guy and you really want to be an underdog, you want to get paid for real.
Yeah, yeah.
Make sure to use DraftKings,
Yeah.
his new sponsor. Which is interesting. Because how come they're so close together? All these things, DraftKings. What's another one that is MGM? That's another one. So how gambling is so weird to me. Before used to be legal some places for you to bet. Some things that you are legal, especially you're NCAA, you are not allowed to bet as an athlete. That's a problem. Some Iowa wrestlers, they got in trouble because they were doing poker. They were betting.
Really?
Yeah. How lame is that?
Yeah.
Because how you supposed to do? You freaking wrestling in the middle of Iowa. They have shit to do.
Right. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
But yeah, it is weird. But nowadays it is actually a driving force to keeping interest. I mean, March Madness, when it comes to college basketball, you have fantasy football that a lot of people they participate on just to keep interest in some of in the sport. And before, for you to bet and gamble, you have to go to a casino and bet. But now you have it in your phone. You can just anytime, anywhere you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. There's yes, limitless. Really, as much you can bet as much as you want.
It's scary. Betting the whole house. When you, at night that you're drinking, you wake up like, oh shit.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, I went too hard.
On your phone too. It's not like you went to a place they give you free drinks or you said enjoy the night. No, just on your phone.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
off the wheels.
I can't imagine.
I don't know about you, but I don't trust myself with those kind of things because I have an addictive personality.
Yeah, I know. I definitely have thought about that. I haven't tried it for that reason. I'm like, yeah. There's a couple guys at work actually that I genuinely I'm like worried for. I hear about how much they're betting and how often. I'm like, ooh, that's a bad sign.
Oh yeah, that's not good, man. When they come in there with the moped one day, you know why?
Yeah.
It's not the gas prices. They lost the car. Damn, that's scary because it can go off the wheels.
Mm-hmm.
It's like anything else. It can be cheeseburgers or it can be bunny and just go off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to the main event. Well, we're going to talk about that Josh Van fight versus Tatsuro Taira.
Yeah.
That one was a fight the light flyweight. I think 125 weight class. I can't remember the name right now of the weight class. But that was an interesting fight because Taira, he started as a grappler, the fight, and he was dominating Van on the ground.
Yeah.
And then Joshua was able to, a few rounds later, he was able to catch him standing. He was able to get a couple of combinations. He was able to Tara, and they were going back and forth. And Tara got dropped. And it might seem a little early that the referee called it off, a knockout, because Tara was mad. He used his mouth guard and just tossed it across the octagon. It's like, what the fuck, man? It is a title fight. Let me die here.
Right.
Let me die with my honor. But it is, I think it's fourth round, but it was a really entertaining fight. That
Really?
one.
Was it?
Yeah.
Pretty well.
Yeah. They're going at each other just back and forth.
Nice.
And also, it helped. Out of those two, it helped Joshua Van, considering that he won the title. via a fluke win against Pantoja because Pantoja fell and broke his elbow. So did he really? Is it a win or is it not? Does he start to be a champion? And then he got bottle tested against Tyra.
Yeah.
In this fight.
Yeah, that's good for him. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because he shows that he's battle tested. He will to defend the title against, especially a grappler, because I started that the fight was getting taken to the ground and being dominated on the ground. Boom, he's able to avoid the takedowns and be able to keep it standing and implement his game plan because he was catching him. At the end, enough with the main event: Sean Strickland versus Hamza Shemaev. That one, a lot of people were surprised about that. We were surprised too of that fight. Also, one thing was weird. I know you've seen in the going around about Hamza Shemaev not making weight. Do you see that video? Do you think he made weight?
Do I think he made what? I don't know.
Because the video shows in there, the scale was still moving around whenever they called the weight. It was,
Really?
and then it was like, you know how his balance is supposed to be in the middle? It was up. That means that he's heavier. They're supposed to scratch weight 185.0, which is weird.
Yeah, that's strange. Yeah, I didn't know there was a question there.
Mm-hmm. Because usually whenever anybody that reads the scale, you see, you have to wait for it to finish reading, but they use those old freaking scales. I don't know if they have a sponsorship. That commission has a sponsorship for sure or something. I don't know what the fuck.
It's harder to, well, I mean, yeah, obviously it can be, but it's harder to mess up the calibration. They just tend to be more accurate. You're not depending on the electric scale.
Yeah. Also different grounds too. Carpet is different than you do hardwood or ceramic floor. They usually tend to be heavier on that carpet. So yeah, also it should be the hard because they already have the weight on the scale from scratch. So you have to step in whether it's over or under. You step on it. But for some reason, the guy just called it 185. I think it was still moving. So like, dude, what the fuck? Please don't cook me no freaking chicken for sure. That shit would be raw as fuck.
Yeah.
Bring that shit in my plate to pink on the inside. But dude, like, yeah, a lot of people were talking about that pre-fight. Even Strickland called it out during the face-off.
Right, I saw that.
So it's crazy that. And then even if they ask Dana White about it, like fuck them, they're fucking idiots. That's what they said. People said that he made, but like, dude, you cannot fake the video that shows that the balance was still moving whenever they called the weight. It was supposed to stop before they called the weight. But he might have been over, but he might not be over by much, like maybe 0.3 or something like that.
Yep.
Because even 15 minutes before his weight, he was still moving around trying to cut weight. Or Hamza Shemaev. So if he wasn't at weight, he was close to it, probably.
I would think. Yeah.
Yeah, but
it's a weird thing to overlook. Like, you got one job at that moment, and let's read the scale.
Yeah. I probably, he was the last guy. Probably that's what he's like, fuck it, I was going to go home.
Yeah, right.
Make him wait because
this guy.
Yeah. You do want to make him wait, especially the main event. Also, do you want to be responsible for throwing a freaking main event? Piss off your boss. Like, hey man, I hate to be shitty about it, but the guy didn't make weight. You had to cancel the main event. That's crazy. Jeremy Stevens didn't make weight. That's a Dana White's case was talking about. Jeremy Stevens did not make weight. He was 160 instead of 155. And it shows that he didn't make weight, and they call it on there. So, I mean, why didn't they do the same thing for Hamza Shemaev? Don't know. This Sean Strickland walking to the fight, we dealing with. Not a lot of people talk about this, but he had a separated shoulder, not just soreness. An actual injury that being slammed into a wall during training the same week off. You know, some wall they had a padded wall. That's it, instead of cage. That's the next time he's going to train inside the cage because you push against the cage, you have any issues with separate shoulder getting injured. But that's what happened the week. He's like fucking idiot. He felt like an idiot for training like that. He knew better than that, training like that. But instead of pulling out, he adapted. He changed how he warm up. He limited the movement he normally relies on. He even avoided his full pre-fight routine because he didn't want to risk re-injuring it. He want to separate his shoulder again. And yet he's still competing. And after the fight, he talked about gratitude. That's one thing that looked cool to see out of him. Out of all the shit talk that he talked about, he did apologize to Hamza Shemal. He said he was just trying to sell the fight, which might affect him in the future for some of the shit that he might say. People
Right.
might not believing.
Right.
Because you don't want him to become Andrew Tate. Because that's what it sounds like.
Right. Yeah. No, agreed.
The Andrew Tate of MMA. Well, he apologized for that. All the shit that he called him. He was trying to like all Christians and Muslims just to get together. He's trying to be like peaceful, but he just wanted to sell the fight. He said that he did have a point about the UFC right now. It's boring. Not a lot of people are watching it. Tickets are going down because it's so boring. The only guy that people come and see and buy tickets for is Alex Pereira. He doesn't talk much. He just knock people out, starch them. So then that's the reason he wanted to sell fight for this one against Hamza Chimaev. To lose cannon. They also like they touched glove right before the fight. They were like, because at that point, there's no more stopping it. Time to scrap.
Yeah, it's true.
All that side is out of the window as soon as they lock the cage. But they had at least 10 people in the octagon whenever they came in. So it was nuts. But after the fight, he did talk about gratitude because how hard you can be on yourself. He said whether he win or lost, he was gonna be happy he'd be able to go home and do his wife and stuff like that, which is a good topic to talk about. Making friends with the worst outcomes. That's one thing I've heard from Randy Couture. If you're able to make friends with the worst outcome, that's why he trains out of too. Make friends with the worst outcome, the worst thing that can happen, and you live okay through it. The sun will still rise the next day, and you able to have peace in your heart. You're able to go out there and compete like you're supposed to, not becoming a hindrance of being scared of losing.
It's crazy how fast that'll get you in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking more about losing than about winning it really tends to bring that about.
Like, seems like trying to break down your performance to wins and losses will be more simple, but actually it makes them more difficult because the only two things that you worry about. Because it's always more to than just winning and losing. One quote that was interesting. Have you seen the video of Ayman Sahabi, Faraz Sahabi's brother, the coach from TriStar? He's talking to a YouTuber. He said that you have no room for anxiety in your cup if your cup is full with gratitude. Was an interesting point that he made. Because I have an anxious you. He did say, my heart is at ease because whatever is meant for me would never miss me, and whatever misses me was never meant for me.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty good way to look at it. Difficult, but
yeah, because that's life. Some things we just hold on to things that we're so target fixated on things that you're not. That's life. You might just don't meant for you. It's some things that you are meant for that you could be good at. They are missed because you are so target fixated on a different path. Being stubborn. It's like I was saying, one door closes, another one opens, but you keep putting your foot on the door, trying to keep the door open. You're stuck there. Interesting. Interesting topic about having gratitude because changes your perspective so much. Gratitude. One thing, Mother's Day was this past weekend. Happy late Mother's Day to all the moms. But usually, we always talk about comparison thief for joy. And so it's comparing so many things. Like my relationship with my mom has not been the best. And it's really tough when it comes to going around Mother's Day. Because in Panama we celebrate Mother's Day in December. But every time we come over here, trying to celebrate with mom, like, hey mom, happy Mother's Day. Was she like, no, I'll celebrate Mother's Day here. I celebrate the one from Panama. I was like, dude, try to buy shit from Mother's Day in December. See what you will get.
Yeah.
That's what celebrate here. It's like, dude, asking you Easter during the summer, it's hard to to get stuff like that. It's been a difficult relationship. So it feels like being so shielded your emotions just to prevent pain. It's like a defensive mechanism that becomes a modus operandi in which you just try to shield yourself from so many emotions that you forget how to interact with people. For example, all the people that are part of your life, they don't deserve that luggage that you carry around. Just because you have bad relationship with your mom doesn't mean the mother of your kids doesn't deserve to have a good Mother's Day. So you always try to make it good for them, even though your relationship with your parent not maybe be that good. But also the thing about comparing, if yours was bad, always remember that somebody else always has the worst. They have other ones that have the parents put them up to adoption, then they want them, and the parent pass away, are in a worse position than me. At this point, some of the parents might be in the hospital fighting for their life. So that's the worst position that I usually try to look with a better perspective and also be grateful of those that are around you that do deserve to get their flowers when they deserve them. And also speaking to like telling, because it's something that I don't know if you struggle with that, just trying to give people the flowers that deserve it because you want to give it to them, but you don't know how to say it sometimes without being sarcastic. What's it called? What is the word for it? Being facetious? That seems to be a defensive mechanism, but you actually being truthful to somebody, but giving people the flowers that they deserve it, it is good. And it's good to do it right then and there. Because if you're like delay gratifications, the time has passed. So you want to give them the flowers when they deserve it and right there and then. Because it is good. Because life is hard itself, and then being nice to people is a break in their life as well. Because life is tough. But that's something that I just want to talk about real quick about gratitude and being grateful for those around you because they have to deal, for example, they have to deal with my shit on a daily. So, in itself, they start to be saying it. But going back to UFC topic, Dana White, some of the biggest changes in MMA are happening outside of it. Also, another guy, to come back to Strickland, another guy that had a lot of trauma growing up. He was being, his dad was abusive towards him. He was always trying to be close to his dad. And also, I think in 2018, he moved to Vegas because he had a motorcycle accident. And he thought his career was going to be over after that. Yeah, I mean, he reinvented his career. I mean, he's Tarzan, long hair, Sean Strickland. But he reinvented his career in Vegas and became the arch nemesis now of the UFC. Dude, Vegas will change you, man. Let me tell you. Do you follow? Do you know Drysdale? Drysdale. He's a black belt. I can't remember his first name now. He does a lot of historian. Robert Drysdale. He does a lot of. I have started following his series on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then during an interview recently, he talks about how Vegas is the capital, one of the capitals of MMA, does not have a MMA champion that started from there. Sean Strickland, he didn't start there. He's in Vegas. Nick Tour, not from there. The only one is just Frank Mir. That started from there, his career there, and became a champion. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many, distractions there.
Yeah.
So
true.
Kind of makes sense. I think it probably would take a special person to not get distracted by something in a city that's, completely dedicated to pleasure of any kind.
Yeah. Sin City for a reason.
Yeah.
Well, wrath is a sin too. It's
Yeah.
a good fuel for fighting. But not a lot of people are looking for fighting there unless they lose out of money.
Yeah, right.
Fighting the house. If you have time, yeah, check it out because he has an interesting topic about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He goes back how the Jiu-Jitsu started from the judo time. He's the one that he said that Maida never met Carlos. Crazy. Whenever they started, he might have been like a second hand learning from one of the Maida students. I don't know what his name, but he never met Maida because Maida was never in the same area. as Carlos Gracie. But it's a crazy. Yeah, I think he has a couple of. He breaks down the history of Jiu-Jitsu because he has I want to say 6 episodes. So he talks about starting at the beginning of Jiu-Jitsu. Then he talks about the tournament. Ilya was big on challenges of training in no time limit. Carlos was a really big fan of that. Carlos Gracie.
Okay.
But he breaks down all that stuff during because he says he's a historian. I don't know what his accreditation is from. But he is the only one of only 2 Americans to have won mundials in the gi at 94 kilos.
Wow. Okay.
And he's only one of only 4 Americans to have won ACC Absolute Division. He submitted this small guy by the name of Marcelo Garcia.
That's dang.
Not biggie.
Yeah, no biggie.
Yeah, he's bullying. He's way bully. That's what it was. he just under 2 minutes. He submitted Marcelo Garcia. 2007 ACC. Robert Drysdale. So he might know a thing or two about jiu-jitsu.
Maybe. That's wild.
Yeah, boom. Yeah, if you have chance, just check him
Yeah,
out.
I'll have to.
He notable students: Forrest Griffin, Frank Mir, Randy Couture, Dan Harding, Evan Dunham, Brad Tavares, Joanna Jacek, Vito Balfour, Anderson Silva, Kevin Randleman, Phil Baroni, Felon Lee, James McSweeney, Joe Daddy Stevenson, Heron, some of the guys that he trained. So yeah, that's I wanted to bring it up because it is interesting.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting.
And then he's playing like the guard, why the guard was so good, why they focus so much on the guard in jiu-jitsu. And different, like he breaks everything down during his series. But if you guys are a jiu-jitsu geek, you should check it out. Though going back into UFC this weekend, 328, Dana White during the press conference, he was asked about the shift towards Paramount Plus and the potential move away from traditional pay-per-view points. And this is where things start to get really interesting, because for years, fight specialist stars like Conor McGregor, John Jones, Ronda Rousey build their biggest paydays on pay-per-view revenue. The more buys event did, the more they made. But if that structure changes, everything changes. The incentives change, the contract negotiations change, superstar economy change. And the question becomes, can the UFC still create massive stars without pay-per-view model driving the earnings? Because that's interesting, because John Jones has not fought since the Paramount deal. That's one of the biggest draw. And Conor McGregor is their biggest cash cow. I don't know if he has the top 3 pay-per-view sales with Nate Diaz, Khabib Nurmagomedov fight, Jose Aldo fight. Do you think, because he said that they have a formula that they work out for them to be compensated for those pay-per-view points that they were getting paid? But interesting enough, none of those fighters have fought since the new deal. Also, given they have, well, when's the last time John Jones fought? He's the only one that's fought recently, because Ronda Rousey, she was in talk that she wanted to fight, but she didn't like how Hunter Campbell talked to her. Yeah, she was going to get paid, but she was being honest. He hasn't fought in 10 years. So, but the way she wanted to get paid as a pioneer, and that's on, like, she sounded ridiculous. But John Jones fought November 2024, last time he fought. But all these 3 examples that we used, they haven't fought in a while. But will they fight in this with a pay-per-view model driven for the earnings?
I mean, there's got to be some plan to make up that difference, because yeah, that's the only thing that, I don't know. They can't just remove that avenue from the champions, especially.
Yeah. Let me look up, because how much fighters out of the revenue? Because I can remember it was a weird figure. It's like 10% of the UFC revenue goes to the fighters, which is their main driven force for their entertainment. Okay, UFC fighters receive approximately 16 to 20% of the organization's annual revenue.
16 to 20. Okay.
Yeah, which is a significant lower share compared to major US team sports, which typically pay athletes roughly 50% While the UFC revenue often tops 1 billion, with massive profits, fighters' compensations remain low compared to boxing, where promoters frequently pay out 60 to 70% of revenue. That's crazy. So that was back then with pay-per-view shares included. None of them took that off.
Yeah, that's wild. They gotta have something. I mean, yeah, they gotta catch that up at some point.
Yeah. To keep it entertaining and keep fighters coming in, they had to be able to find a way to stay competitive, because what are the chances fighters are going to go somewhere else? They'll become the ADCC of MMA.
Right, honestly. Yeah. I'd change their salary in 15 years.
Yeah, that would be crazy. It's not that much entertaining right now. Like as Sean Strickland said, in UFC, did it become more stable, the sport itself, or this more less explosive financially for fighters at the top? Because there's not much difference between prelims and main card unless you win. It sucks. Because how much time they spend, because like Johnny Walker has said, I think it's like $400 if you get paid certain amount. Because you have to think taxes get taken out. How much you have to pay for your manager, your coach, your all the stuff you have to pay, your camp for running, nutritionist, all your medicals that you have to do. Your coach is flying out there.
Yeah, that's wild. As it really is. They got to do something. I don't know what and I don't know when, but something's got to change there.
Out of all the money they're getting out of freaking commercials between fights,
Right?
between brands,
Right?
you think
Yeah.
that every commercial that you happens during your fight, you should get a payout of
Yeah.
it. Because taking enough time for your fight. But now, before we close out, what the fans really want to know, what are your picks for this weekend for MVP? Gina Carano versus Ronda Rousey.
My gosh. My gosh. I saw this thing where Ronda was saying, what did she compare it to? She compared it, it's going to be legendary like Mike Tyson in his prime or Muhammad Ali in their prime. Like, this is on that level. Like, what? How delusional are you? Like, there's no way she believes that. No way. She's been in the WWE too long where she's trying to sell it, and it's so bullshit. Oh, I hate it.
Yeah, it's so transparent. You can see that when she's bullshitting.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets so butthurt whenever they tell her that, no, this fight is not valid that much. Even when Hunter Campbell told her, like, no, this fight does not make sense. Gina Carano, in 2009, what, 17 years last time she fought? And then you haven't been fought in 10 years?
I didn't even. When did you say that fight was?
This weekend. It starts at 6 p.m., I think. I think the prelim starts at 3, but I think the main card starts at 6 p.m. Eastern time.
I don't think I've ever had so little interest in watching a match. That's, yeah. Oh, terrible.
She was mad. Hunter Campbell, because of slap fighting too. Because she heard him talk about slap fighting. It's like, yeah, the reason why these guys we do this kind of things because if within these guys will be doing meth right now. So it's like, well, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
But she's just mad because she's not getting paid, and she's not giving. She thinks that she deserves more than she's giving for MMA fans. But dude, you have to be humble. You are so like I saw. Do you think she has like a California personality that she just like she deserve like a Cali girl, like a Carol girl from the valley? She's so delusional, like separated from everything else that she's like, oh yeah, I'm this great, and like, no, you're not.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah, I think she's convinced she's so much better than she is, that she's done so much more than she has.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, like, yeah, she brought a lot of attention to women's MMA. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked her back then, but since then, it's just so bad.
I don't want to be rude, but Gina, one of the things I saw, Gina Carano, do you think she's gonna make weight? Because back then, that's one of the things she struggled with when she used to fight was making weight. And she looks a lot bigger than Ronda Rousey. Remember when we saw those pictures?
Yes.
That's no question. Do you think? I don't know if she have run into the same house as your wife. issue to get the same guy. Hire him up for running
Jump on it.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if she because she's still looking big.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So I don't know if she may wait too.
Yeah, will they care?
No. What are the ticket sales? I wonder right now. Because that would be interesting. What ticket sales are right now? People buying those tickets. I'm not sure. Probably we have to wait till it's close to the event, see what ticket sales are like. Because the only thing I see is Jake Paul talk about unveil the payout structure for this event. Because I've heard Nate Diaz was getting 10 million. Huh. Oof. Okay, let me read this right here. So the Aero One show. The decision this weekend's MMA debut alone has already accomplished that win. With the big names in the platform, both for Bidarian, it goes even deeper. The MVP co-founder said Tuesday on the Ariel who won his show that all fighters on the card will be paid a minimum of $40,000. More than UFC's typical tragic introductory fighter salary is $12,000. So you're gonna pay $40,000 each, a minimum. Nate Diaz, that's the reason Nate Diaz came back after 40. I mean, will you come back and fight for $10 million?
Yeah, no doubt.
$10 million. He had 3 rounds with Mike Tyson. What are you doing?
How much for 3 rounds?
3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Yeah.
You're getting penalized for stalling?
No, just make the 2 minutes.
I'll try, you know? I might die, but...
Dude, I pull guard, man. Doesn't even pull guard, man.
What? Now I'm a card player.
It's a boxing match. Dude, just pull guard, man. Just pull guard. He won't be able to punch you.
That's right. Can't punch me on the ground.
Dude, inverted guard. He can punch below the waist. He can punch below the... Right?
Yeah, it's perfect.
He punches your legs all he wants to, but he cannot punch below the belt. You're upside down. But dude, yeah, I don't know. Well, Nate Diaz versus Mike Perry. Who do you think is gonna win that one?
I think Nate Diaz. I think he's just better, to be honest.
Boxer.
Yeah.
And cardio wise. Even though he lost against Jake Paul, the boxing match. Boxer is a bigger guy. Mike Perry is not a bigger guy. He's about the same size. But yeah. I think I'm not sure how much because Mike Perry has been on a tear. That's one thing factor that I take consideration. But if the Nate Diaz it is Nate the motherfucker, that ain't surprise motherfucker shows up, yes, he will win this fight. But yeah. We'll see how this goes. What kind of shit show it might be.
On the outskirts.
Yeah. I just read from Yahoo News.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you step back and look at UFC 328 as a whole, it wasn't just another 5 card. It was a reminder of everything MMA really is. It's Jim Miller showing us longevity and perspective. It's Grant Dawson showing us that fighters carry real life tragedy into the cage. It's Chris Weidman being recognized for a legacy that shaped the sport. It's Sean Brady pushing back against the noise of social media. It's Sean Strickland fighting through injury and still showing up. And it's Dana White in the UFC navigating business model that's evolving now in front of us. And because at the end of the day, fans see the fights, but fighters live everything that happens before it. And that's what makes this sport so beautiful and so brutal. At the same time, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll be back on the next one. But anything else? You want anything else to cover?
Okay. Nope. Good to hear.
You want to close out?
Sure. Thank you guys for listening. Give us a listen on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. Follow us on Instagram. Let us know what you like and what you don't like, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Mad Matters podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and YouTube so you never miss an episode. Drop us a review, share with your training partners, and keep rolling on and off the mat. Until next time, keep fighting, keep learning, keep growing.